Good evening, folks. This is Andy Pedraza with Special Effects Academy. We're on the Forex trading room start of the week session for April 18th, 2021. We'll be going through our regular agenda, a look at the prior week's results, our currency strength meter for the week, fundamental announcement scheduled, a look at the major pairs on the daily charts, any steps we see in progress, and a few words in conclusion. Starting with the ledger, no significant change on the long term on closed trades. The only difference in the balance is simply the swap cost for holding onto these trades during the trading week. We still got the same 4 trades open. All of them right now are at profit. So once we close those out, we should have a nice uptick on the account. The bigger winner is I forget which one. I made a mistake here, and it's not even on the screen, but we do have a euro pound trade open, which is at a very nice level. I think it got cut off at the top. Anyway, suffice it to say that we do have a very nice profitable trade there in the mix, and the other trades are also profit at this point in time, though not as much as the euro pound. On the intermediate, we closed a few trades out at profit throughout the week, so the balance is up as well as the growth percentage. Only trade opened throughout the week was the Kiwi dollar at the bottom of your screens, and that one was close to profit, but we had other trades closing out as well. We still have, I think, 2 trades open right now, and we're letting these run. One of them is that old Euro Swiss trade, which is carrying a loss, and the other one is the EURGBP, which you do see on your screens there. It is a little bit better than break even, or at least it was on Friday when we moved. On the short-term account, we did close out the trade on the Euro Swiss, so we took that hit. It just didn't make any sense to continue holding it on, so we did take the loss, and we freed up the margin to start applying it to other trades as we move on. So always, I report exactly what happens, good or bad. So definitely, we're not starting the short-term ledger out right here, but it did make more sense to close out that trade and not wait for it to continue moving again and free up the margin. When we're not trading, we're really not doing much of anything. So it was time to do that. Notes and opportunities for improvement. I mentioned closing out last week's trade on the short term, freeing up margin. The trending is starting to strengthen again across multiple pairs, so we're taking a close eye, keeping a close eye on those for any opportunities. And of course, COVID and its effects on the global economy are still the driver in the market right now. Relative strength meter, this continues going back and forth. As I said, there is some trending. There's also pairs that seem to be very, very bouncy. The dollar is one of them. We see a week of strength followed by a complete rout. And last week was definitely a rout for the dollar. It was the bigger mover on the negative side, the Kiwi and the Aussie being the bigger movers on the positive side. CAD also suffered a bit, though not as much as the dollar. And the other currencies are pretty flat. We can say that the pound recovered somewhat and the Swiss lost somewhat, but really they weren't the big movers. Your big movers last week were the dollar, the Kiwi, and the Australian, and well, the CAD as well. Fundamental announcement scheduled for this week. We've got the RBA meeting minutes, Reserve Bank of Australia, coming out tomorrow, Monday at 9:30 p.m. So our evening session will be moved a little bit later to accommodate for that. I always like these RBA meeting minutes because they do provide good guidance, and that tends to make the Australian dollar move. Tuesday morning, well, really, it's going to be tomorrow night into Tuesday morning at around 2 a.m. U.S. Eastern time. We're going to have the ILO unemployment rate quarterly coming out of the UK. That's also one I like to trade, so we'll be there for that one. On Wednesday, we're going to have the Bank of Canada's interest rate decision, and that's probably going to be an important one to cover. Not that I think they're going to be changing the rate, but the guidance that comes out at the same time or close thereafter. The press conference is scheduled for 11:15. That usually has some impact on the market. Thursday, we have the European Central Bank's interest rate decision very early in the morning, 7:45 U.S. Eastern time. And that pretty much covers our announcements for the week. With that, we move on to the charts. Oil is back to rising. It had a pretty bullish week after having gone sideways since somewhere around the beginning of March. We had a bit more than a month and a half of sideways action. It's back now very close to the top of that sideways range. So hasn't broken out yet, but certainly a very, very big move for 1 week. Really, it happened on 1 day. So that was a really big 1 day move. Currencies, the euro dollar. So we can see the dollar continuing to lose ground against the euro. We're trading this one on one of the accounts as well. And well, it has been angling higher. There was a lot of dollar strength that came into the market since around the beginning of February. No known reason, just the market reacted in that direction. It looks like the market has come to its senses and it's on the brink of starting to cross the Ichimoku cloud. We're keeping a close eye on this. Pound dollar, same thing, but still in that sideways pattern. It did have a nice bullish week, but it's still well below levels of resistance. I'm pretty hopeful that we're going to have an opportunity to trade it back towards the top. But again, we have to wait until we see that at least begin to happen. USDJPY going into yen strength at long last. It's still not out of the woods. It's done a pretty good retrace, but it's still well above the cloud, well above support. We're going to see some yen strength. I would love to see that, as this and all the other yen charts are showing brilliant opportunities for a retrace, but we have to wait for that to actually happen. Not quite yet. The Tenkan and the Kijun, those red and blue lines on your screen, are just beginning to cross. The Chiku, the green line, is just starting to cross the candles as well. So we're on the brink of getting a bearish signal, a sell signal, but not just yet. Maybe this week. USD Canadian has gone sideways for a while, but last week it started moving back into, I wouldn't say strength against the dollar, more the dollar started weakening, which helped the USDCAD, helped the Canadian here to sort of start recovering ground. It is following very closely that descending trend line. We are short on the USDCAD right now, looking for a trip to the bottom and preferably a lower low. How that works out. USD Swiss, another retrace all the way to the top of the Ichimoku cloud. In this case, we do have the Tenkan and the Kijun, the red and blue lines already crossing. We have the Chiku having crossed the candles, that green line. So it is pretty much giving us a sell signal. Depending on what it does as the week begins, I'm probably going to start going short on this one. Aussie dollar going back up, a very, very nice 3-day move. On Friday, it didn't do much, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, especially Wednesday, very, very good move. It's still underneath the shadow of the cloud, so we've got resistance there, but it does seem to be on the brink of a breakout again towards the top. Same thing can be said for the Kiwi dollar, except it's farther away from the Ichimoku, from the Kumo, the cloud. So another one where we're waiting to see the opportunity. We're already in this one. I actually know we got taken out at profit on that retrace on Friday. We'll probably want to get back to that trade sooner rather than later. Aussie Canadian, very, very bullish until it collapsed on Friday. We took profit on this one as well. This was a trade we had open, and it actually gave us a nice little bit of a boost. So another one we'll keep trying and see what we can do. It's going back towards support, still not out of the woods. And again, the Australian had last some very nice retracement on all the Australian pairs. Euro Swiss still going in all directions, but staying above the cloud. So it is still at a very strong level of support. Still probable that it will be heading up. We did close out the trade on the short term simply because there was no point to waiting this out. This sideways pattern can last for months, and I really didn't want to sit there watching that trade be negative all that time when we could use the margin to better trade. Euro pound, another one nice bullish run, but last week was pretty flat. Didn't really move much. It's still much higher than it was before. It's at the bottom and starting to cross into the cloud. And we still have that trade open. That didn't show up on the ledger snapshot. That trade is open on the long-term account and carrying some very, very nice profit. I think around $200+ on a quarter lot. So we're looking good. It was higher, of course. We can see that it dropped on Friday, but we'll see how the week starts out, and we may indeed start gaining even more. EURJPY, another sideways pair, but at the very top of the chart, it did breach the topmost level of resistance, but since then has gone decidedly sideways for about 3 weeks now. So we're waiting for that move in either direction. As I mentioned before, the yen starting to gain strength gives us some brilliant trading opportunities on this chart, as well as some of the other yen charts, simply because of all the room that it has to go down once it begins breaking support. We have to wait for that support break. Euro Canadian, nice recovery from the euro against the CAD last week, and I did say that the CAD lost strength, but it's still below resistance, below the cloud, so it's still not out of the woods, but starting to show some upward pressure. And this is another one that I would dearly love to trade up simply because of all the opportunity there. Pound JPY retraced a week before last, and this past week was absolutely sideways at the topmost level of resistance, at least resistance I've drawn. There's another level at the very top that is unstated here in the chart, but still, that is a strong level of resistance now, pretty much in a wedge, and we're waiting to see if we get a breakout, or again, this is a yen pair, and the yen has been showing some signs of waking up. We might have a trip at least towards the bottom of the wedge. So we'll see how that plays out in weeks, maybe days, maybe weeks to come. Aussie JPY, another one with those brilliant opportunities. If it doesn't break out above resistance, we're going to have a very strong possibility of a trip towards the middle of the chart, perhaps all the way to the bottom. Again, have to wait for that to happen, but it's starting to look like a distinct possibility. Euro New Zealand trying to break towards the bottom of the chart yet again, stopped at the top of the cloud, the Kumo, and on Friday did a sort of half-hearted retrace that simply undid Thursday's drop. We still had a very significantly bearish week, and well, we'll wait and see what this gives us. It's still in a bullish breakout, so it still broke above the trend line. It's still above the Ichimoku cloud. So old resistance is now acting as support that has to be taken into consideration. And of course, we're eagerly waiting to see what happens as the week kicks off. Pound Canadian going in all directions last week, as both the CAD and the pound had their issues. The pound more in a recovery mode, the CAD still weakening, but ultimately neither one of them got the upper hand. Just a very wide range, but ultimately sideways. Pound Swiss also finding support at the top of the Ichimoku cloud. We can see that happening right there. Good opportunity for a trade back towards the top. And indeed, I think we have that trade open on the long term. Have to wait and see how that plays out, or on the intermediate, one of them. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see if that pans out for us. Either way, as long as it remains above the cloud, this is a buy. And lastly, the pound Aussie, one of the crazier pairs. As mentioned, the Aussie gained significantly last week, which is what we can play out on this chart. Went all the way to the bottom of the cloud, but Friday it retraced, maybe a third of the way back up to where it had started. So definitely not out of the woods in either direction. Still looking like it's going to head up at some point, but I this would not be my preferred pair for trading until it shows a little bit more momentum in either direction. That is it for the chart setups we see in progress. Of course, the pound pairs look to be regaining some strength after what looks to have been a short-lived drop. The dollar back to weakness as expected, or at least as expected by me. The Australian pairs not ready to give up the fight. They had been weakening or sideways for a while. This last week showed the biggest gain we've seen in the Australian dollar in quite a while. Same thing applies to the Kiwi. The Japanese pairs, they're still struggling, showing a little bit of activity, but still definitely not out of the woods. And the Canadian pairs, as mentioned, the Canadian in general continues to push stronger, but it did have a little bit of a breather last week. So it did not strengthen last week, but neither was it a complete rout. It looks more like a sideways action than anything else. And last but not least, our parting words: slow and steady is the theme. Go for many small wins while the bigger setups appear. The important thing here is to always have your money working, always have the money trading. You have money parked on the sidelines and you're not trading with it, and you're not going to lose, granted, but you're not going to win either. It's going to sit there. Many times you're not even going to see these big setups just come out of the blue. But you're in the trade, and what would have been a small win suddenly turns into a massive one. You're trading the right way. Every now and then, one of the regular trades you're going into is going to have this huge move, and you're going to take advantage of that. In trading and in many other pursuits, slow and steady wins the race in the long run. And as a bonus, you keep your risk low. If you're looking for 101% gains, that's going to limit your exposure, as opposed to trying to always be looking for that 100% winner that's going to double your trading capital. That doesn't happen all that often. So bear in mind, it's better to have 100 small wins than looking for one huge winner. And this also plays well with compounding, which is the successful trader's best friend. If you're making consistent smaller gains, your account is going to be growing, which is going to be allowing you to trade at a slightly higher lot size each time, leading to bigger wins, even though the risk still remains at a small percentage of your account. So take that, keep that in mind. Make sure you're following that, if for nothing else, just risk. That's going to be it for me this start of week. I should alert everybody that this is going to be a week from hell for me. I have two back-to-back real estate auction tax sales that I participate in. So I've been spending the last few weeks just visiting properties, dozens of properties every day to scope them out. And this week is the clincher. We're going to have the auctions, and I'm going to be very tied up. Which means for those of you who are subscribers, there may come a point when I'm not going to have the afternoon sessions this week, much like happened last week. So that will end. This is the last week, I promise. We've been having the evening sessions, no changes to that. But the afternoon sessions may take a hit as I finalize my participation in the following week, schedule back to normal. And if I do end up canceling any of the trading sessions this week, I will alert via email. Again, this is for subscribers. Everybody else, you only see me on Sundays, so no change to that. Any comments or questions from anyone before we drop off? Okay, folks, thank you very much. It has been a huge pleasure. I will be back with you guys tomorrow evening for our first trading session of the week. And it's going to be later than usual. Again, we have an announcement coming out of the Reserve Bank of Australia. So those of you who subscribe, check your emails. The schedule will be updated there. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.